exclusively on ESPN Plus. UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Pazzi. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Whistle while you work.
From Disney on March 21st, the magical tale
Snow White.
Snow White?
Snow White.
that started it all
I believe you're looking for me.
arrives in theaters.
Magic mirror on the wall.
Experience the Disney classic
Who's the fairest one of all?
like never before.
We haven't even been in reverse yet.
Disney Snow White, only in theaters March 21st. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile. Built for tomorrow's emergencies. Ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day. And that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode number 701 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. It's UNC week. Go to Hell Carolina week. We're here to preview all of it. But on this Thursday, March 6th, I'm Donald Blind. I'm your host for this episode. Jason Evans is with me. It's kind of a newsy Thursday. We're going to talk about a couple of other things in addition to this big game we got coming up on Saturday night.
Oh, boy, yeah. News regarding the coaching staff, news regarding a big game that's just been announced that Duke's playing in next year. Of course, though, we are going to begin, my friend, with the big game coming up this weekend, the hated Tar Heels final regular season game. You know, really quick, I'm super bummed. I've enjoyed, we talked about it with Kenny Denard the other day. My first question to him, is this the most enjoyable Duke team to watch in a long time? He said it's his favorite team aside from his own 1978 Final Four team. We're now down to it. One game at Carolina and then a couple tournaments. And I'm, as much as we have been building to and enjoying, everything about this team and building to the postseason and, eager to see them hang perhaps multiple banners. The fact that we're at the very end is kind of, it's sad. There's a twinge of sadness, my friend.
It's not the destination, Jason. It's the journey. So enjoy the journey while we still are on it. That's how we always say. I will say, as you mentioned, Jason, we just had episode number 700 with Kenny Denard. If you have not listened to it, you need to go ahead and listen to it. Stop right now. Pause this. Go to listen to that and come back. 700 episodes. Again, each 100 with Kenny Denard. We are so thankful for all of you for listening to Jason and I that long for 700 episodes. And then we're getting closer to the 100 episode of DBR Bites. We'll figure out what we're going to do with that, but stay tuned to your feeds because over the next week and a half, there's going to be a lot of content coming from us. Okay, let's get to the UNC game. And Jason and I are going to do this differently as we kind of done against when we played Miami, when we played Wake Forest. Since we have seen UNC, we are going to talk about what we have seen since we last faced them. But some things that we need to talk about before we get to the actual basics of UNC. Of course, we have clinched a tie of the ACC regular season title, but we need to clinch it outright over Clemson and Louisville, because if we somehow lose this game on Saturday, Jason, we actually might be looking at the 3 seed in the ACC tournament, which is unfathomable for a team that we have been watching all year long.
Yeah. I mean, it's a testament to how well these 3 teams have played this year, and also an indictment of how poor the rest of the ACC has been, that no one's been able to rise up and really challenge these 3 teams. That we talked about the fact that when Duke won their 18th game, I guess.
18th, yeah.
We set a record. Like, wow, yay. I mean, we're going to set a record that it's pretty likely 2 other teams are going to match.
Right. We just got there first.
Get one more. We got to get one more.
We got to get one more.
Sure. Yeah.
And when you think about it, Jason, also when you think about the grand scheme of things, we've been talking about the ACC tournament, we've been talking about the NCAA tournament. The SEC this week has decided that none of them want to win. So we are looking at an idea where we are number 1 in all the metrics. The net, KenPom, Bart Torvik, and Evan Maya all have us listed as number 1. We could be number 1 in both polls, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't get this win on Saturday night against our vaunted rivals, who, of course, need this win to keep their hopes of making the NCAA tournament alive. So they are going to be fighting. So, Jason, with all the tiebreakers that are out there, with all the things that might need to happen and how you put this jigsaw puzzle together about the ACC tournament, there is one simple solution that I have figured out. Send Carolina to hell on Saturday. We go to the ACC tournament as the 1 seed. I think that's pretty simple, don't you?
Yes. And I endorse this path heartily.
It's a much easier path. It involves less blood pressure medicine for all of us. Okay. Since February 1st, first of all, UNC 20-11 overall, 13-6 in the ACC. They're currently in 4th place, tied with a couple other teams. So they're really fighting to even get that double bye in the ACC tournament. But since we beat them 87-70 on February 1st, they are 7-1. We talked about back then a team that was kind of in disarray when they entered Cameron for that game on February 1st. But since then, it feels like they've gotten it together. They beat Pitt a week after we played them. And then they had a Saturday-Monday double where they went down to Clemson and lost. But since February 10th, they are on a 6-game win streak with games against Syracuse, NC State, Virginia, Florida State, Miami, and Virginia Tech. The one thing, Jason, that when you look at their record, the one glaring thing, we've talked about them being in the bubble. They've been kind of going on and off the last few weeks. The one thing that they need is quad 1 wins, because against quad 1 teams, they are 1-10. 1-10, not 10-1. It'd be great if I think UNC would love it if they were 10-1, but they are 1-10, so they really need this win to kind of elevate their KenPom status. They're 38th in KenPom, 38th in the net, but in the eyes of the committee, they need a signature win. This is the one time they have left on their schedule where they're guaranteed to have that opportunity, and it's upon Duke to take it away from them.
Yeah, and I'll go so far as to say that if Carolina loses this game, they will be in a situation where they probably have to, at a bare minimum, make the ACC finals to have a shot at the NCAA tournament. They would be. I think they are currently off the bubble. Not in the tournament. They're on the bubble, but they're not in the tournament.
They're like the first 4 or next 4 out, depending on who you look at.
Yeah, something like that. A victory over Duke would zoom you up in those rankings. No question about it. In fact, you can probably make a fairly good argument that if they win this game, they're kind of in. It would be a victory over Duke would be, one of the 3, 4, 5 biggest things you can do all season if you're a team. And considering Carolina's won 6 in a row to then win a 7th in a row over the Blue Devils, it would put them in great shape. But if they don't win this game, I think they're going to have to beat one of Clemson or Louisville, maybe both of those teams. Because if you look at where they might be, actually, wait, if they win this game, they're probably in the 4 spot. They'd have to play Duke in the
They'd be in the 4 spot, yeah. So they
might have to beat us twice. I mean, it's a tough road for them. It is really not easy because, as you say, they haven't beaten a lot of good teams, and we don't want to let them start beating good teams now.
Yeah, but again, like we said, we kind of joked a couple weeks ago that they've gotten hot, and they extended, or at least they announced the extension that they'd already inked with Hubert Davis because they were on such a hot streak. But again, they've won six in a row entering this game. And Jason, as we turn to the offense and defense and the players, this is the part where it's going to be a little bit convoluted because I know that you kind of have to lump all of that into one as sorts. And when we're talking about this UNC team who has kind of turned it around as of late, and there are some different reasons why the first part of their schedule was so messed up and how they have actually started to really put it together in the last month.
Yeah, so the way I'm going to do this here is you're going to hear some discussion of players, you're going to hear some discussions of advanced metrics, but what you're mostly going to hear me talking about is the Carolina lineup and who is playing more, who is playing less, how they've changed their starters. I mean, like, if I go ahead and tell you, hey, RJ Davis is going to break you down off the dribble and take tough shots and make them, you already know that. If I tell you Elliot Cadeau isn't a shooter, but he sets up his teammates with sublime passing, you already know that. You know Seth Trimble's an elite defender. You know Jalen Withers is a stretch four who's more interested in shooting threes than playing in the post. How much am I educating you here by talking about these players? What's more interesting is the thing that has changed about North Carolina over the past 6 or 7 games that has made them perhaps a different team than they were. After months of playing small, starting 4 guards under 6'4", Hubert Davis finally figured out that maybe, just maybe, playing people with the size and length to rebound and, see over the defense might be a good idea. He finally caught on to that 7 games ago, and they moved Jalen Withers into the starting lineup, and they put Ian Jackson back into a bench role. Now, they even went further. 5 games ago, they moved Seth Trimble to the bench, and they're now starting Drake Powell in his place. I want to be clear that this doesn't mean that Trimble and Jackson aren't playing. They're still getting low, mid 20-minute kind of production. But before, they've been playing 30-plus minutes. And Hubert moved the rotation around a bit. He got a little bit bigger, and it seems to be working. How did he get bigger? Well, think about it this way. The starting lineup, the first time we played them, was 6'0" RJ Davis, 6'1" Elliot Cadeau, 6'3", Seth Trimble, 6'4", Ian Jackson, and 6'8", Van Allen Lubin. 6'0", 6'1", 6'3", 6'4", 6'8". I averaged it up. That's an average height of 6'3".
Keep in mind, Jason, that the smallest guy, as we've said all season, the smallest guy that we start is 6'5". So we had our smallest guy was taller than 4 of their 5 starters.
Yes. By changing it up and putting in a guy, but he essentially took the 2 dudes who were 6'3" and 6'4", Ian Jackson and Seth Trimble, and replaced them with guys who were 6'6" and 6'9". Suddenly, Carolina's starting lineup goes 6'0", 6'1", 6'6", 6'8", 6'9". Well, Donald, that's size. It's not huge, but it's legitimate size. They go from a team that averages starting a player who's 6'3" to a team that averages starting a player who's 6'5". There's a huge difference there. And as a result, lo and behold, North Carolina's winning basketball games. You mentioned, Carolina played Duke and UNC back-to-back on Saturday, Monday. And I'm sorry, said Carolina.
Clemson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Clemson won both those games. Since those 2 games, Duke and UNC are both undefeated since they last played Clemson. Duke is 7-0, UNC is 6-0. Bart Torvik says, you can sort Bart Torvik's advanced stats. He says that since that loss to Clemson, UNC is the number 18 team in the country, a top 20 team, and they have the 4th best offense in all of college basketball over the past 6 games. Now, it's worth noting that Duke is the number 1 team in the country over that span, and we have the number 1 offense, but still, Carolina is really lighting up the scoreboard. They have scored over 90 points in 4 of their past 5 games. Over 90 in 4 out of 5 games. They're hitting an outrageous percentage of their 3-pointers. Donald, they're hitting 47.8% from 3. Almost 50% of their threes. Damn, that is a big old number. They are the top 3-point shooting team over the past 3 weeks in college basketball. Every team in the country. No one's shooting better from long range right now than UNC. They're hitting nearly 59% of their 2-pointers. Everything is working for them on offense. Offense, not defense. Um, they're not playing much better D, even though they've gotten a little bit bigger. Their defense over the past 6 games, I mentioned that their offense is number 4 in the country. Their defense is still 126th. Syracuse put up 82 points on them. Florida State scored 85. They are still a team, as they have been all season long, that does not force turnovers, doesn't get steals, doesn't block shots. Basically, they've moved into let's outscore the opponent mode rather than trying to shut teams down. Now, they are rebounding better. Their offensive rebounding rate over the past 6 games, 39%. That is a big old number. You're getting 40% of your offensive rebounds. That means you're getting a lot of offensive rebounds. And their defensive rebounding rate is 50th best in the country. So the extra size is helping them rebound more. That's not a shock. The other interesting thing, Donald, that has happened is that Carolina has slowed down. It's really compelling to me. I mean, obviously, look, you play more big men and fewer guards, and I'm telling you, and you say you slow down. I'm not that surprised at that. But through the middle of January or so, North Carolina had only had 3 games all year with fewer than 70 possessions. You and I talked about last time when Duke played them that they're a team that wants to play fast. They're a team that plays in the mid 70s, sometimes even reaching 80 possessions in a game. Well, like I said, through the middle of January, only 3 games with fewer than 70 possessions. In their last 7 games, they haven't topped 70 possessions a single time. They have clearly slowed down the way they're playing. And to me, the biggest change is the insertion of Jalen Withers into the starting lineup and getting minutes. From January 11th to February 8th, for about a month, Carolina went 4-4. And during that span, Jalen Withers averaged 7 minutes per game. I mean, he was a non-factor. He had a total of 21 points in those 8 games. That's about less than 3 points per game. Jalen Withers wasn't playing and wasn't scoring. They moved him back into the starting lineup. He's now averaging better than 23 minutes a game and almost 11 points per game. This is a huge difference for Carolina, having this stretch 4 in the lineup, a guy who can rebound a little bit and a guy who's going to stretch out the defense a little bit on the outside without giving up too much size. The other thing that's happened in their recent games is that R.J. Davis and Ian Jackson are hitting 3-pointers. In 4 out of their past 6 games, I should say, R.J. Davis has had 3 or more 3-pointers. His 3-point field goal percentage in ACC play, he's now up to 37%. Ian Jackson has had 5 3-pointers in 2 of the past 6 games. Like, Ian Jackson is
and off the bench too, right? Where he's not starting as much.
Yeah, he's not playing as much, but when he comes in, he's firing from 3. He's had 5 3-pointers twice lately, and he's shooting over 40% against ACC opponents. This is a Carolina team that has gotten good from the perimeter and gotten a little bit bigger, and it's made a big difference for them. I'm not here to say that they're like that we should be terrified of them or anything like that, but we're not playing a team that's ranked in the 40s in KenPom and such. Again, over the past 6-7 games, 18th best team in the country with the 4th best offense in the country. Duke needs to play well, or Carolina will make a really good game out of this.
I think the other thing too is by making their lineup a little bit bigger, it doesn't fully solve the problem that they had against Duke, but it helps alleviate some of it. And that problem is they just could not handle our length. They could not handle, especially with the guards, right? You know, RJ Davis got a couple of shots off, but he had a tough time generating offense. Eli Cadeau had a hard time generating offense against Duke's big guards. And the fact that we just got Tyrese Proctor back really, really helps in that arena. The fact that we're now hearing a little bit about Malik Brown might be ready, according to John Shire. He's going to practice today and give it a go and see if he's going to be ready. But he's kind of hinting that is a possible sight that we could see is Malik Brown back on the floor on Saturday. And if that's the case, again, that adds another element to the frustration that they saw back on February 1st. They could not get any passes. They were deflecting passes all over the place. If you remember, I think it was like 25 deflections that Duke had in that game to the point where John Shire was like, I stopped counting because there was just so many. And that is what really hurt them. But again, having bigger guys and slowing down just a tad allows for them to be able to kind of see the floor, see what offense presents or the defense presents them, and then react accordingly. That is how they've been beating teams. But again, that doesn't change the fact that our length could pose a problem to UNC's offense.
Donald, the reality is that even though Carolina's gotten a little bit bigger, the two guys who have the ball in their hands, R.J. Davis and Elliot Cadeau, they're still small.
Have not. Yeah,
they have not grown. And it's worth looking back on that first game and the terrible, terrible struggles of Elliot Cadeau. Because we talk about this guy's a ridiculous passer. He only had 3 assists in that game and 5 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
The Elliot Cadeau has more turnovers than assists against Duke, then it's hard to see how Carolina has a chance. And Cadeau, by the way, was only 1 of 8 on 2-point shots. He hit a couple threes, mostly meaningless shots. That was part of the run late for Carolina. But if Elliot Cadeau isn't able to generate any offense for them through the assists or through his mid-range and short-range game, it's a big problem for UNC. And, even... Yes, Jalen Withers is bigger than Ian Jackson, and yes, Drake Powell is bigger than Seth Trimble. But if Elliot Cadeau and R.J. Davis are still struggling to get a lot of stuff going, I think that's a place where Carolina is in real trouble against Duke.
As we move to the things to watch for this game, and I want to do this before we take the break because I think it's important to kind of keep this together. And I start with this. We're going to talk about this a little bit more after the break. But this team needs to stay focused. There's a lot going on right now.
Oh, yeah.
To say the least. And the fact that, to their credit, this has kind of been swirling around for a couple of weeks, right? We've been talking about some of these rumors, for the last couple of weeks, and this team has still scored 100 points twice in that time frame, and almost 100 in a couple others. So they still need to stay focused. But this is a game, obviously, it's the first time for our freshmen and some of our transfers that they're going to UNC for this game, for Duke UNC. Game day will be there. For once, their crowd is going to be filled to the brim, the Dean Dome, and it's going to be loud. At least if UNC is doing well. And I think at the end of the day, this team wants to go in there and make another statement. This team has been making statements all year. To anybody that will listen, and for a lot of the writers and stuff out there, they just haven't, right? They've been fixated on other teams that they consider to be elite. Well, Duke wants to go out and say, hey, we have been doing this all year. Here's another example. And oh, by the way, everyone else doesn't want this 1 seed, this overall one. We want it. Let's go get it. How do they do that? Tenacity on defense early and often. That's how we got out to that big lead in the first game. We had runs of 11-0 and 16-0 in the first half. And in the first 10 minutes of that ball game, when the clock hit 9:59 in the first half, we were up 32-13. We want to have that same kind of tenacity where we take them out of the game, because with taking UNC out of the game goes the crowd, right? If the Dean Dome is silent and it's just a glorified scrimmage where all you hear is Duke fans yelling in there, that is what we want. We want to kill any momentum from the get-go. You mentioned the fact that they've been hitting threes at a tremendous clip lately. If we are able to kind of curtail that, the perimeter defense, I think, is going to be the story here, just like it was in the first game. Because again, as you mentioned, Elliot Cadeau, 5 turnovers, not able to generate a lot of offense through the pass, and whatever they were able to generate was very much forced and out of sync and out of character for them. If Duke is able to kind of curtail that once more, it allows for that frustration to peek in. And again, they remember what happened last time too. If they see the similar qualities, the similar traits of what's going on, it allows them to react in a way of saying, oh no, not again. And I think this team, more than teams we've had in recent past, have been able to exploit that and really take that and use it to their advantage. Finally, I said it in the last one, I'll say it in this one. Some of those guys you mentioned, the Jalen Withers, the Seth Trimbles of the world. We talked about Cade Tyson in the first one. You didn't mention him here because that's how much he's played recently. But don't let any of those guys beat you. That's what happens in this rivalry, is you have someone who has an out-of-body experience. Keep them in their bodies. Keep them on the bench. Keep them out of this game, because I think that is where, especially when we are on the road, that is where UNC likes to come in and shock people. It's when one of those guys comes off the bench and has a worldly of a game. Let's keep those guys in their zone, keep them in their lane, and focus on, again, those toughness principles that have gotten us to this point. Our defense being on point, hitting some threes, and really being efficient on both offense and defense.
I got nothing to add, man. I think you're absolutely right, and I'm ready for it to happen. Let's go.
Game days on Saturday. The game is at 6:30 p.m. Jason, let's just fast forward to Saturday. We just want to get this game in the atmosphere because both you and I know everyone out there is ready to say, "Go to hell, Carolina. Go to hell." Let's take a quick break. On the other side, we got to talk about the other news that has dropped today. Jay Lucas heading to Miami. Duke playing in Chicago on Thanksgiving night. We will talk about all of that after this.
Hey guys, want better performance in all areas of your life? If the answer to the above question is yes, try Joy Mode Daily to support healthier blood flow, improved heart health, and enhance your athletic performance. It is proven to improve performance by 50% in just 60 days, and it is expertly formulated and backed up by science.
Yeah, all you do is simply mix a booster pack with water, and you will feel the effects within 45 minutes. Take control with Joy Mode. Get a boost anytime, anywhere, and never miss a beat. Save up to 30% when you start a subscription today, and keep your performance at its best without any interruptions.
So, if you're looking to take your game to the next level, visit tryjoymode.com. And here's the code. Use the code DukeBB at checkout for 20% off a single purchase or 30% off a subscription order. That's TRYJOYMODE. Tryjoymode.com. And the code again, DukeBB, for 20% off single purchases and 30% off subscription orders.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Employee Appreciation Day is March 7th, and a Starbucks card is the perfect way to say, thanks for all you do. Have a smaller team? You can send up to 10 e-gifts in one transaction from the Starbucks app or online at starbucks.com/gift. Or you can also send physical or digital cards in bulk at starbuckscardb2b.com. No matter your team's size or location, Starbucks has got you covered.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places. Between payroll, your tax consultant, and the IRS. If your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
All right, we are back, and we turn our attention to things off the court that are happening right now. Again, Thursday has been a hell of a day when it comes to Duke basketball news. The first one, the biggest news of the day, it was officially announced this morning that Jay Lucas, associate head coach for Duke University, will be heading to take over as the head basketball coach at the University of Miami. He will join Miami after the UNC game on Saturday and will be formally introduced in a press conference on Monday. A lot of reasons why this is happening, Jason, but there was a great message from John Shire about it on social media. That was posted on social media this morning when the announcement happened. But first of all, your thoughts on Jay Lucas, one, heading to Miami, and also the fact that we will not have him for the postseason.
I know there are a lot of Duke fans out there who are like, wait a second, why not stick around to the postseason? They're all mad about the portal and all this other kind of stuff because the portal starts up in the middle of the NCAA tournament and you need to have your coach in place. He needs to identify players. It's really hard to take over a program and still be at another program. I think the reality is this, Donald. Jay Lucas wants to be a head coach. For a guy who has zero head coaching experience, to get a Power 5 conference team, a team like Miami that has a pretty fair bit of recent success, was in the Final Four just a couple of years ago. It has a strong alumni base that is willing to put up the kind of NIL money that you need to compete nowadays. For Jay Lucas, this is a massive step up. And it's my belief that Miami said to him, our season ends on Saturday. We're not making the ACC tournament. We're going to be all done at win or lose, regardless of what happens on Saturday. Our season is over. And the moment our season ends, we plan on having a coach in place who will look to next season. We're not going to start planning for next season in a week or 2 weeks or in April after the NCAA tournament is over. We need to start planning for next season right damn now. And I think that they said to Jay Lucas, if you want to be the guy to coach this team next year, you need to start coaching them as soon as this season is done. My bet would be that Jay Lucas, if he had his druthers, would stay at Duke. He would, if he could put everything on pause, all the recruiting, all the portal stuff, if he could pause all that, he would stay at Duke and ride this out till the end of the season, hopefully the first week of April. But that's not possible. And I totally understand why Miami wants him in place. And I understand why Jay Lucas feels like this is where I have to go and this is what I have to do. It's unfortunate. I don't know the inner workings of the Duke coaching staff well enough to know that if this is a huge loss or if this is something they'll be able to easily adjust to. I don't think it's coming as a surprise. I think that they've sort of known about this for a little while now. But it's sad that we're not going to have Jay on the sidelines helping John out and helping these players out. He was instrumental in recruiting so many of these guys that I know he wants to be there, but I get why he won't be.
Obviously, Jason, this is a bittersweet kind of deal for me, right? As a Duke alum, as a Miami alum, as a fan of both programs, wanting to see both of them do well. For Miami, this is a home run hire, even if some of the fans still wanted somebody that wasn't a rookie head coach. I hate the timing. I hate that it has come to the fact that he has to leave in the middle of the season, or at least towards the end of the season, before it's over, before he sees out what this magical run could bring us. And yeah, sure, if we hang banners, he'll get rings. It's not a question of that, but it's one of those things where I would have loved to see him be around for this ride because he, as you mentioned, was such a big part of it. I think the real criminal thing here, when you talk about the portal opens on March 24th, which is just after the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. And of course, some people out there have said, "Oh, well, he could wait." Like, I mean, he could, right? But the idea is, if you have a job and you're going for a job, look, I'm looking for a job, right? If a job presents it, they're like, "Hey, you need to be Jason. You have a good job." Someone's like, "Hey, I got a better job for you. I got a job that's going to give you, set you up for whatever. You need to be in Texas on Monday." Jason's going to Texas on Monday because that's sometimes what you have to consider. And I think the real criminal thing here is that we're in this position, one, because the NCAA decided to arbitrarily put the portal during their biggest event of the year, which can easily be changed, right? Like
it makes, by the way, we talk about that really quick. Sorry. We talk about this when it comes to football because the football portal comes in the middle of bowl season, but it makes sense there because it's the end of the semester. If you're someone who's transferring and you want to go, to a place for a new semester for the spring,
you got to enroll. Yeah.
You got to enroll. You got to be there probably around New Year's Day. So it makes sense that the portal is open when it does in football. It makes no sense in basketball.
No, because you have 2 months of school left, right? Like you have 2 months of school left before you even. I mean, look, remember when you talked to Sion James the day after he graduated, or I'm sorry, the day he graduated.
Yeah,
almost 2 months after he declared to come to Duke through the portal. So like, this doesn't make any sense. And also, again, it's their biggest product. It's their biggest product. They spend so much money and they get so much money from the NCAA tournament. Why would you have this issue? I blame that. Funny enough, Jason, the irony of this, is that Miami was so bad that this had to happen this weekend because they did, as you mentioned, they did not qualify for the ACC tournament. If this was last year, they would have another
It's
week
so ridiculous.
before this would have taken place. So we would have had them through the ACC tournament at least. So I think that's interesting. That just that small change in the format leads to this happening. But I have no ill will towards Jay Lucas. It's clear that the team doesn't, as you mentioned. I mean, people out there online have noticed that over the last couple of games, Emmanuel Dildy has been coaching the defense a little bit more, and I think that's in preparation for what they're going to have to do over the next week after this UNC game. So, like as you mentioned, this is not an Elko situation where he's leaving in the heat of the night without telling people goodbye. They've probably been telling them goodbye for a couple of weeks, and when this news came out, what did they do the next day? Of course, Duke men's basketball, Twitter, social media, always on it. They posted a video of Jay Lucas talking with Kama Malawich at the Garden. That wasn't them just doing that by coincidence. That was them being in the moment and knowing that this was a statement that this is still our guy. Does not matter what happens. This is still our guy. Coach Shire said that as much in his words this morning. So we wish him well. It's hard for me because I have to wish him well, less he's playing Duke. But it is going to be interesting next year when he comes to Cameron, or we go down there for the game that we have against him. But really excited for him personally. It just sucks that this is the timing that has to happen, and unfortunately, we always say with the players, next play, next man up. It's going to be the same way for the coaches, and the coaches appear to be ready for this tournament to go with this run without him. Anything else, Jace, before we move on?
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to note a couple interesting things. First of all, Jay Lucas started his college basketball career as a player at the University of Florida. A little bit of a rival there to Miami. I think that's interesting. You may think, by the way, that this is the first branch of the John Shire coaching tree. While it is, it's also worth noting that Jay Lucas has coached under some pretty darn good other coaches. John Calipari, of course, Shaka Smart, Rick Barnes. This is a guy who comes to having a head job after some very, very successful and insightful assistant jobs. And the last thing I wanted to note is, up until this moment, John Shire has been the youngest coach in the ACC. He will not be any longer. Shire is 38. His birthday's in December. His birthday is in August. Jay Lucas's birthday is in December, and Jay Lucas is currently 37. Shire's a year and a few months older. But so the ACC will have a new youngest coach. It'll be the guy who is sitting next to the old youngest coach for the past couple of years.
I can think of no better send-off than to send him off a winner in the Dean Dome on Saturday against UNC. So hopefully that comes to pass, and he can take that with him to Coral Gables. Jason, before we get out of here, something that dropped not 20 minutes before we started recording. We have a schedule update for next season, and it's a big one. Duke will take on Arkansas on Thanksgiving night, November 27th. Tip-off time at 8 o'clock. It will be at the United Center in Chicago. This feels like it's that one-off game that we kind of had this year against Kansas in Vegas. This is something similar, but of course it pits John Shire once again against John Calipari.
Actually, wait, I'm wrong. Wait, we played Kansas at Kansas. The game we're thinking of was Kansas in Vegas 2 years ago.
No, that was this year. I was there. We haven't played Kansas at Kansas in a very long time.
Okay, you're right. I'm getting confused. Never mind.
We
were talking about it, but it never came to pass. You're right. Never mind.
You're thinking of the home and home that was rumored to be part of it, but we are playing. I believe we're playing Kansas in the Champions Classic next year. So that's what you're thinking of. That's going to be, I believe, in the Garden. So put the Kansas talk aside, but this is that one-off kind of big game that, again, John Shire likes to schedule these. We've seen that he is no stranger to kind of bowing or going at big teams, in big moments, big arenas. United Center is one of those games. Of course, for him, it's a homecoming of sorts. He's from the Chicago area, so he gets to go home. But Jason, your thoughts real quick on that particular game. Again, Arkansas right now, not great, but the idea is that Arkansas is expected to be a little bit better next year.
Yeah, you would think that with the NIL that they have put in place there for John Calipari and John Calipari's track record, that this will be a pretty big deal. Prime time on Thanksgiving night is a very,
CBS
very,
too, big CBS. So
yeah, it's a really interesting time for a game. It'll be one of these events that sort of feels like one of the big kickoffs to the college basketball season for sure. It is worth noting they've got a website set up, DukeArkansasChicago.com, where folks can register their interest.
What is that GeoCities type of URL address?
DukeArkansasChicago.com, and they say that in addition to tickets, there will be other opportunities and events to enhance the Thanksgiving weekend experience. Sounds to me like there may be some, NIL related things that happen connected to this. I think look, I am always in favor of Duke playing good non-conference teams, getting out there and challenging themselves as much as possible. We talk about Duke as the team that is the face of college basketball, and this is how you become and remain the face of the sport, is that you play in big games that feel like big events. And Thanksgiving night in Chicago, yeah, man, I think that sounds pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. Probably not, because my entire family usually gathers at my house for Thanksgiving, and I think I need to be there.
I was gonna say I usually gather with my dad. My dad is from Arkansas, so grew up a big Razorback fan. So this game is kind of one of those important ones, so he can kind of dish out some jabs to his brothers and sisters and his family back home. I would love to do the same. I don't think Chicago's in the cards for Thanksgiving. It's kind of cold there, and my dad does not necessarily go for that. But we'll see. I will say, Jason, this does open up the idea that we can keep in the back of our minds of who will we play in the ACC SEC Challenge, because Arkansas would have been that candidate. I mean, of course, there's several candidates now: Tennessee or Alabama. Of course, Kentucky's on the menu now that we aren't playing them in the Champions Classic. We could do a rematch either at Rupp or at Cameron. But it'll be interesting to see who we line up against. But we're going to get at least two teams from the SEC next year, which will also help with that strength of schedule that we're always pushing. So, Jason, anything else before we get out of here? This was not a long episode, but it was a good one.
Yeah, a lot of content here. Folks, I am, by the way, ACC tournament coming up. I don't want to look ahead too much, but I just want everybody to know I will be attending the ACC tournament in Charlotte. We're going to try and get you a lot of content from there. I'll probably whip out my iPhone and record my general thoughts and things like that several times while I'm there. And maybe we'll see if I can arrange some kind of meetup or something like that with some of you folks. It's busy. I mean, look, ACC tournament is for hopefully going to be 3 games in 3 days, back to back. And I need a little bit of time to rest and recuperate and record episodes with my buddy Donald here. So, but we'll see. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'll be in press row. Hopefully they don't have me in the rafters. I'm kind of afraid. I don't know where they place all the media, but I doubt I'm going to be courtside. That's for sure.
Probably not courtside. That ship has sailed now that the home schedule is done. But Jason and I were playing musical schedules earlier before this call or before this recording, because over the next week we're going to be bringing you a lot. We're obviously going to be coming back to you at some point after the UNC game. So get your headlines in, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. We're going to try and get Jason Jordan Brenner on next week to try and preview the postseason and kind of, again, get him back on. We have, obviously, previews and recaps of every single game in the ACC tournament. And then, a week from Sunday is Selection Sunday. We're obviously going to be reacting to where we are going in the NCAA tournament, but that is a long way away. Right now, there is just one game on our minds, and it is in Chapel Hill on Saturday night.
Yeah, Donald, I happen to look at the calendar, and it appears to be the month of March. So
yeah,
the madness is here, baby.
Yes, madness on our calendars for everybody. But get your rest in now, because come Saturday, it's going to be a brand new ball game, and then after that is a brand new season, the season that we have been ready for all year. That will do it on episode number 701 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Thank you as always for listening. Again, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Get your headlines in after the UNC game on Saturday night. Until then, he is Jason. I am Donald. That sound is the Duke Band. They're playing us out. Actually, they're not playing anything. They're saying, go to hell, Carolina, go to hell.